Hey guys, and welcome to the channel. If you like this video, please subscribe below. Today I brought a quite interesting Omega Speedmaster reference 105.003/64. This is a clearly vintage piece. I like my vintage watches to look quite vintage, and I know that's not particularly what every single collector goes for. This is clearly not a save queen. A lot of collectors go for perfection, which is quite nice, but then they have to pay top dollar. This Speedy and I have been through many journeys. Most recently, we both went on a 140-mile bike ride, and the Speedmaster was used to time my splits and my average miles per hour on my bicycle. Considering he's roughly 50-some years old, the Speedmaster has done quite well. Who needs a fancy Garmin bike computer when they can have an Omega Speedmaster? So in the middle, we have Omega Speedmaster reference 105.003. To the left, we have Omega Railmaster 135.004 from 63. And to the right, we have Omega Seamaster 300 from 1961, which is 14755. As many of you know, the Omega Speedmaster was one of 3 watches brought out in 1957. Omega Speedmaster, Railmaster, and Seamaster 300 were the first true sports watches released by Omega. Prior to this, mainly Omega focused on dress watches, although their Seamaster was one of their first attempts at waterproofing a watch to be competitive with Rolex and their Oyster case. The Omega Speedmaster was brought out mainly to help race car drivers figure out lap times as well as their mile per hourage using a tachymeter. The Omega Speedmaster was one of the first chronographs to put the tachymeter on the bezel. Omega, Rolex, and several other watch brands competed for a contract from NASA to be one of the first watches in space. Omega won the contract, and reference 2998 was one of the first Omegas in space and came out with their new special edition called First Omega in Space. This was a straight lugged Omega Speedmaster. The moon watch that we all know and love has the twisted lugs. This reference before us today is still a straight lug, but has differences from CK2915 and 2998. This piece was worn by astronaut Ed White on one of the first spacewalks into space, and hence this reference is now nicknamed Ed White. Reference 145.012 is eventually worn by astronauts landing on the moon, and the Omega Speedmaster Professional that we know today with printed logo, twisted lugs, and caliber 861 was reference 145.022, which was released in 1969. This Speedmaster is known to have applied Omega logo, Omega Speedmaster text without professional designation on the dial. The Seamaster and Railmaster have printed dials. The Omega Speedmaster has tritium lume, whereas the Seamaster actually has radial lume, and we'll get into that in a future episode. The Railmaster has tritium dial. This Omega Speedmaster has batten hands, whereas reference 2998 had alpha hands. I do want to point out that these are replacement hands, and you can see the Super Luminova. This is compared to the tritium hands that you could easily see on the Railmaster. Lug width for these pieces is 19 millimeters. Case diameter is approximately 39 millimeters. This Speedmaster also has a .over-90 bezel, which is correct. This bezel has clearly seen much use, and I have named it a meteorite bezel because of all of its markings. Since this is a column wheel chronograph, the pushers work quite nice. On closer inspection, we see that we have a very nice vintage style strap. Sorry for the glare. As we can see, we see that we have the applied Omega logo, written Omega Speedmaster, and no professional designation. This watch dial has some interesting patina on it from approximately 11 o'clock past 2 o'clock. That extra golden color is probably likely from some sort of possible moisture or perhaps oil coming from an inappropriate service at some point. The golden tritium is quite nice, but is off some of the markers. This dial does have the appealing mildly tropic brown color. The 6 o'clock marker has Swiss made T, designating it as a tritium dial, and we get closer inspection to see that it is a .over-90 bezel. We have another look at the dial and see that interesting patina at 11 p.m. to 2 p.m., which I think gives this Speedmaster its interesting character. And I know that the beauty of this is beholden probably to myself and some other collectors, and others probably find it off-putting. We have a closer look at the meteorite bezel. Subdials on the Speedmaster have a 30-minute counter closer to 3 o'clock, an hour marker at 6 p.m., and then seconds hand, which runs all the time at 9 o'clock. Lifting off the case back, we see a dust cover, and when we lift that up, we see the beautiful Omega caliber 321. It's a hand wind movement, roughly 27 millimeters in diameter, has 44 hours of power reserve, and beats at 18,000 beats per hour. It's a column wheel chronograph based on a Lemania 2310 movement. This is in contrast to the more widely used 861 of today, which uses a clutch. Several engravings on the watch show Omega 321, 17 jewels, Omega Speedmaster, and the serial number. The case pack has Omega etched, as well as the reference number 105.003-64 and Huygens and Frères, the caseback makers. 105.003 can also be assigned -63, -64, and -65. They were delivered up until 1969, which means that manufacture, shipping, and sales could be years apart. The Ed White was not very popular when it was introduced, mainly because it was superseded by 105.012, which is the first reference for the Omega Speedmaster Professional with the twisted lugs. The straight-lugged 39mm case wears particularly well, especially on my 6-inch wrists. I find it fairly thin, even with its mineral crystal. The patina on this watch, I think, gives it charisma. I know there's imperfections which really affect its value, but my goal is not to sell this watch anytime soon. I'm planning on wearing it, enjoying it, although he is due for service here pretty soon. I like wearing it on a strap and on a bracelet. I know this watch is not for everybody, given its imperfections, but on several different occasions, with meetups of other watch collectors, I have been made several offers for purchase. But yet, I'm going to keep this one for some time. Thanks for watching the video today. Stay tuned because we have the other two of the Omega Sport Watch trilogy to go through over the next couple of weeks. In the comments below, give me your thoughts on the patina of this watch, and if you prefer to see the Seamaster 300 or Railmaster next episode. Thanks again.